On today's ADOTAT Show, we're with Greg Stewart, the wizard behind MMA Global's meteoric rise. Picture this, a marketing maestro turning a once-sinking ship into a fleet, setting the digital seas ablaze. Hold on to your overpriced office chair for a whirlwind ride into the future of marketing, Stewart style. Get ready to learn more than you did yesterday.
Welcome aboard the ADOTAT Show, where marketing, media, and ad tech converge. Fasten your seatbelts as your host, Pesat Latin steers you through the digital world of advertising trends and marketing innovations.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP is a true legal powerhouse.
Hey everyone, we're here with Greg Stewart of MMA Global. Hey Greg, how are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself today?
Pretty good. Let's get started. In the digital age, every marketer fancies themselves a prophet. How do you differentiate between genuine forecast and foresight and mere trend hopping in the rapidly evolving landscape of digital marketing?
Wait, are you suggesting in some way that marketers make bullshit up? Is that what that question is going a little bit? Maybe
I think so. I think marketers might.
Oh, right. And if you believe that, then I have a bridge in the metaverse to sell you.
Although I have to be honest, Evan Shapiro always amazes me what he gets right.
Oh, really? Is he really good at it?
He's very good at it. Evan's a bit of a prophet, and he has that. I'm jealous of that hairdo he has. Have you ever seen him? He has like beautiful.
Okay, I'll have to look up more of what he said recently. Then good.
Okay, so let's answer the question.
Yeah. So the question is, what's the difference between real and bullshit? Is that it?
Pretty much.
Okay. So listen, let me start with this. So MMA Global is a nonprofit trade association, and not to sell you on the MMA, I don't really care about that. But here's the basic thesis of the thing. Blah blah blah. It's architecting a new future of marketing. That's what the sort of tagline is, mission statement. What we're really doing is trying to save marketing from marketers. And what that means...
I've been hearing that we're our biggest enemy.
Yes.
That we had just sat down 10 years ago and actually cared about what was going on.
Yes.
We could have prevented all the government intrusion.
Well, I mean, I guess that's coming at from some of the privacy and regulatory kind of stuff. But I'm talking about the basic foundations and fundamentals about how marketing gets done and what we believe to be true in the world about how it really works. And our experience, the experience of the MMA and the thesis that we have behind the organization is that marketers just don't know enough about the basics. So you're right. We can get off into the profit about where the world's going and what's going to happen. MMA is focused on trying to make sure that the foundation of how we operate is better. And now, granted, we do some pretty revolutionary things. Like we've done a bunch of work in marketing org. We can now tell you what changes in the marketing org will produce sales of the company and what will reduce sales in the company. That's a revolutionary thought. Nobody's ever come up with anything like that. But we've now actually got a system to measure that. So is that profit? I mean, profit sounds like you're kind of being illusionary again is the problem with that I have. It's like, but what are the underlying dynamics of how marketing really works, how we communicate with consumers, and how we move them to action, which is ultimately, if we can agree, is the point of marketing, correct?
Are we too dependent on data?
Too dependent on data. I mean, I don't know.
We lost the creativity, as someone said the other day on my show.
No, I mean, listen. I think if you assumed your creativity to data, then you're right. You're fundamentally doing the wrong thing. And the greatest return on investment, even just take creative for a moment, right? The greatest return on investment is always investing more into creative to get the message and that to be more clear, more compelling. So back when I ran the IB back in the early 2000s, right, and we did a lot of work that fundamentally ended up developing multi-touch attribution, we were going through and analyzing marketers' campaigns. And the thing that we found is that too often they got the strategy wrong. And then even when they got the strategy right, they didn't communicate clearly in the way that consumers understood. And the third leg on that whole thing is how do we measure and optimize against that? But if you don't get the first two things right, it doesn't matter. Creativity doesn't matter. It's irrelevant if it doesn't meet a need for consumers. If it doesn't communicate, they don't understand it. So my point is that the fundamentals are wrong. We get a drift of the whole we're here arguing or swords of justice for about creativity. It's a big deal, but you can't get the fundamentals wrong.
Right. Someone said to me again last week that marketing needs to solve an issue. If you can't know what the problem you're solving, you have no idea what you're doing.
So at a very basic level, make sure the campaign's solving a consumer problem.
Correct.
Is that where that's going?
Yeah, and that marketers have completely lost that. And it makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I see
agree.
campaigns on a day-to-day basis going,
Yeah.
why would I need this? It's a great product. I love the commercial, but
Or even more so, why did you serve this ad to me, and why did you serve it to me for the 20th goddamn time? It's like, really, knock it off, everybody. Like, be respectful of my time and my attention. Serve me ads that matter to me in some way. And to your point, I think where you're going there, right, that we communicate clearly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
so how do you balance data-driven insights with intuitive foresight?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's one for the ages, I suspect, at some level. And maybe there's people much smarter than I who are doing that. You know, like the great creatives I know and have had a chance to work to in my career in the variety of different agencies I've been, you know, my impression was that they had tapped into a data stream that the rest of us didn't see, hear, or understand. And their job then was to take those unique understanding of that insight and turn it into some sort of communication plan. As I've suggested, we're not always getting right, but there's something very powerful and unique about that. But is that always what's necessary? Like, I don't buy the whole, that, ads have to be a motive, that they have to have emotion to them. I'm not so sure that's necessary. Sometimes I just need to have a problem solved. I'm not saying it's
Right.
bad to do that, but it's hard to get there in that. So is that the bar that we set? I'm not so sure that that's absolutely essential. I have to really think that one through and explore that, maybe do some research around that to try to better understand it. But let me go back though. When you say data, what are you referring to? I mean, data sometimes is just about understanding consumers. Sometimes data, I think as you just used it there, is around insights. Like, what's data? Data feels too general a term, the same as measurements become a stupid term now too.
Well, I think we now see as a consumer as data points, and we don't even actually understand the consumer from an emotional perspective.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we're not getting into the psyche of them. I don't know. I think the big brands are kind of doing that. Again, I'm a little removed from the creative process. I haven't been a part of an ad agency creating ad campaigns for some time now. But I think at the time when I was in that business, we were digging into understanding the underlying, sometimes going back to like caveman era to try to understand and interpret consumers. Like my favorite one, I worked on Bounty for many years. And if you've seen the Bounty ads, right, quicker, picker upper, everybody knows the campaign slogan. Okay. And if you remember the visual from it, yeah. Here's
the campaign works. I assume Bounty works also.
Well, yeah, Bounty does work. Yeah, no, and it was a superior product, but product superiority is kind of gone for most products today, right? There's not that much difference. I want to be careful. Maybe some brands will argue differently, but that's besides the point for now. So the funny thing about Bounty is that if you remember the scene, basically the kid spills something, mother looks at him, looks at her, the kid, right, and then wipes it up. Peace is restored. So if you think about,
I think any parent, and I was a single parent for 5 years, I think any parent can identify with that.
Well, okay. But here's the thing. The mother is choosing not to be upset. It's not getting irritated with the kids, not yelling at it, which is basically having had children is sometimes how you feel, depending on the moment and the mood that you are at the time. So basically, Bounty's bringing peace to the home. That's a pretty brilliant creative insight. That's a pretty brilliant orientation. And I'm sure they got that from listening very carefully to consumers about what really matters to them. And there's a real value in that. It's not just the quicker picker up, but that's a sort of the rational explanation of it. The simple thing, or the more stronger component, is the fact that they're actually saving families. They're helping mom not to be filled with shame. And I don't mean to make it so traditional, or dad for that matter too, I guess. But they're trying to prevent shame from them having to yell at the kid because, kids spill things, because that's what kids do. So I don't know.
How does this translate to the online world now?
Well, I don't know. Listen, certainly I would suspect that storytelling has been lost in the online world at some degree, and we're not able to do that. But, and sometime, I don't know, maybe more video online. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer to that. Basically, what the MMA does, here's where we're at. So we work for CMOs predominantly. So
but you have to identify trends for them, correct?
Well, I'm not identifying trends. What I do is I listen very carefully to their problems. I do not ask them for their solutions. I'm not interested to hear what the industry's solutions are. I'm interested in hearing what the problems are. What do we know? What don't we know? What don't we understand? And I'll give you a couple of quick examples of how that plays out. I started to hear a couple of years ago a bunch of brands saying to me that they thought that the performance, there was this tension between brand and performance. And they would say things like, the brand people would say, well, the performance people don't respect ongoing consumer brand equity. They don't believe in the long-term viability of the brand. They're killing the business. And then you talk to the performance people, they say things like, well, the brand people are full of rainbows and unicorns. They have no idea what they're talking to. They're just making shit up all the time. Okay, so they have no measurable goals. I hear that one a lot too. Well, we took a step back and said, well, okay, got it. There's tension between brand and performance. I hear it. Okay, I'm not. And by the way, I have heard that. I've talked to probably 300 CMOs, in the last 3 years, and 100% of them say that that's an internal discussion. So my question and the MMA's answer, or the question to that was, well, why don't we know the answer? That's a math problem to optimize between short term. That's not creating cold fusion. That's not going to Mars. That's just a math problem. Why don't we know that? Well, the issue was we couldn't collect the data. And there was no off-the-shelf methodology to do that. So MMA spent a year. We built a methodology. I validated a bunch of marketers. We raised $2.5 million, and we have now been in field with 3 brands trying to shed light on that issue of the relationship between short-term, long-term brand versus performance. And what
can you tell us so far?
So here's what we know so far. This is the most interesting insight. And we did this in order to help the CFO understand the value of brand. Because as much as we all believe in brand, I do believe in brand, I've seen it work, we don't really know how to invest in it in a way that a CFO would appreciate. So what we know now is that we have seen the range that $100 gained from a brand campaign today will deliver, we've seen 2 studies only so far, either an additional $150 over the next 9 to 12 months or $550 for the next 9 to 12 months.
And you think that measurable result is more important than brand lift?
Well, yeah, sales is kind of more.
I'm not sure everyone believes that. If you talk to many agencies, sales happens.
I don't know. Tell them to show
me. We
me
want to ensure that you lift your brand up. I mean, if you look at, again, go back to most of the ads now. Let's just think about the Super Bowl ads. Let's not. But are any of them memorable? Just beyond to actually help you with the brand right now?
Well, listen. I mean, you had a whole series of questions in there. You know, one,
Sorry.
do you need to? Do I need to remember an ad in order to have impact on my life? And I don't know that I do. I need to interpret the brand in some way. And most advertising hits at what I call the low processing level. It operates in the back of your brain. It doesn't really happen in the forefront. It's not like I'm really paying attention to the 1,500 some odd ads I'm supposed to get in a day.
But as you mentioned, we can all still say the quicker picker upper.
Yeah, but we do not. And do we understand? But do I understand at a very visceral level, at a sort of a subatomic level, at some point, that I understand what that's doing? That it's reducing shame and making my life better and the life of my family and so on. Like, I don't think anybody could probably articulate that. I happen to know that's what's going on because I worked on the business.
But I bet you, if you ask any parent, what does bounty do? They'd say it picks up things quicker. Quicker,
picker upper, right. But they might be interpreting that at a different level. It's kind of the point that I'm saying. It's not just around that. Okay, so now, but wait, let's go back to one of your questions. So, I mean, listen, let me sort of, is the point of marketing to produce sales? Do we agree with that?
I would argue it is. I would argue that ultimately you want to improve your sales. You want to make more money. And very few people go into business for another reason. Okay,
good. It's to produce, and I would even translate to say it's supposed to produce growth or accelerate growth. Same thing. Okay, here's a funny one for you. About 5 years ago, I run a CMO summit in the 3rd week of July. We have a closed door session in there for CMOs. There was a meeting there about 6 years ago. I'll never forget this. And I had some of the biggest CMOs in the world. It was a CMO of Dunkin', of T-Mobile, of Allstate, of GM. You get the list, right? And it went on and on like that. And we asked him a throwaway question. It was just meant to be a warm-up. It was an hour conversation, closed door. We said, what is the role of marketing? What is the role of CMO? 1 hour later, we realized nobody agreed. Nobody agreed. So the challenge you run into in that is that if the CMO is walking into the board or the CEO, the CFO, and the rest of the C-suite and can't consistently articulate what is the point of marketing, that we're not consistent about that, that's a very fundamental problem, which is why the MMA set off to do the organizational work that we did, which is defining what is the mission of marketing.
Why have they lost sight of this?
No, if it's lost sight or just never had alignment about what the focus and purpose of marketing was. I do agree, though.
We're having a panel in a few weeks about the death of the CMO, and one of the people leading the panel will be Heidi Anderson from Nextdoor. I don't know if you know, Nextdoor combined their CRO and CMO position because they believe essentially.
I know Heidi. She's on the board of the MMA, so I know Heidi. Yes,
okay, so exactly. But basically they're essentially saying that the whole purpose of marketing should be raising revenue. So why have separate positions?
Correct. Yeah. Why not? Well, I don't know that everybody's got the same skill set for that, but you're right. Chobani was one of the first that really did that a number of years ago when they put under Peter McGinnis, they put sales and marketing. And it was incredibly interesting to hear how he talked about how much value that would have for the company and the alignment and marketing in support of sales and customer demand. Absolutely. Okay. So wait, where do we leave off? So marketing is about growth, is about sale. Yes? Do we agree with that?
Just read my notes.
Yes. Good. Okay, but we agree it's about sales.
Oh, of course. Marketing is about making money.
I would hope so. Okay, so then you ask me a question like, well, am I disrespecting brand lift? Well, no, if I can draw the relationship between brand lift and sales. Now, the other thing I happen to know in these brand versus performance studies that I've done, and by the way, each one of these is a $650,000 to $1 million study. This is very serious research and trying to really understand the fundamental. And by the way, I have no dog in the fight. I don't give a shit if brand lives or dies. It's no difference in MMA. Now, I'm a big believer in brand. That's what I was raised at. I've seen it work, so I'm okay with that. But, that's not our agenda around the thing. So what we also found, interesting enough, is that brand is upper funnel and lower funnel. So we've been talking about it wrong. Because what it does is we've seen it reduce CAC, the cost of acquisition, by minus 85%. It lowers the cost. So it serves the need of brand lift, but it also reduces the cost of actual acquisition, which at some level we would sort of believe, but we've never had those numbers because nobody has ever done longitudinal studies like we did here over the last year and a half. So my point is, if every marketer, let me go back here, if every marketer, every CMO tells me that the dimension long and short term is important in a discussion that happens within their departments, and there was no methodology to even execute that as little as 2 years ago, WTF. We are not respecting ourselves as marketers. We are not answering the fundamental questions that we have in the business, taking the time to figure out what is really true and right and what isn't.
And that's the fundamental question? What is true and right?
It's one of the fundamental questions. I said ask fundamental questions. I didn't say that's the only one, but that's one of them. Yes.
What's another one?
The other one that we've discovered is what's the role of marketing org and what plays its relationship into to produce sales. So what we've seen from a lot of marketing orgs is that it's based on politics, not performance.
Right.
So working with a team of professors starting about 6 years ago, which actually started with that original meeting I mentioned where marketers had a lack of clarity or consistency around what is the role of marketing, we have now built a measurement system to figure out what really does drive sales. Now, the two things that most happen in most marketing orgs is they look at the centralization, decentralization decisions, okay? And they also look at, insourcing versus outsourcing. Those are the two most common items that come up in a marketing reorg. Neither one of those, proven now, have any relationship to sales. So our fundamental understanding of what we believe as CMOs, as marketers to be true, how the world works, we've not figured it out. MMA has. My board members now know, but the whole of the industry doesn't know. We didn't believe that to be true just 3-4 years ago, but we now know.
Is the industry receptive to this information, or do they just fight back and tell you that you're the BSer?
No, I never get that you're the BSer because that's not the point of the MMA. I don't, we are not selling anything. I mean, we sell membership. You can choose to belong to the organization, but we don't sell anything. I'm not selling an ad tech solution. I'm not selling any other solution. I'm selling consulting services. It's not what the MMA does. It's not what any real nonprofit does. I think my board believes it. That's why they've gotten involved with us. Are we quick to adapt to change? I think we struggle with that a little bit. I think we're too busy to do better. And I think that needs to fundamentally change. I think that needs to fundamentally change. I mean, listen, I opened up Possible last year, the event that we started. It's down in Miami in April. And I opened that I hear oh, do you?
Somebody.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah. No, we've done a good job.
People really hope you don't destroy another social media network.
Wait. What do you mean? Wait. What's what?
People hope you guys don't destroy another social media network this time.
Why would we destroy a social media network? I don't know the problem. Okay. Well, I don't know that we're. I don't. Yeah, thank you. I don't know.
If you're responsible for Linda.
I'm sorry. It took a moment there for me to kind of reflect on that. Yeah.
I mean, for many of us, that is when Ellen met Linda.
I don't know if Elon knew her prior to that. I mean, they certainly knew each other, and NBC had a big deal with Twitter, now X. But I don't know that we're responsible for her getting the job. But thank you. That's very funny. That was funny. So Possible, I opened up Possible last year with a statement that I believe the marketing industry, and listen, let's go back to point one here. I love marketing. It's all I ever wanted to do. It was the business that I wanted to get into since I was a kid.
You can actually say you grew up wanting to be a marketer.
Mm-hmm.
You put on a cape and it had like a big M on it.
With a big M on it, exactly. I don't know if I was that, but
the rest of us were like dressing up as Superman, and you were.
Yeah, maybe I watched Bewitched too much as a child. I'm not really sure exactly what happened, and you're maybe not even old enough to remember that Darren was that guy in there.
Darren, right? I know Darren. Okay, there's two Darrens.
Okay.
Right?
There were two in the show. That's right. They did change. That's funny. It's funny you know that. So I opened the show.
I may not look it, but I'm a little bit older than I look.
Okay, fair enough. But I opened Apostle last year saying that I believe marketing is no further along than the medical profession was in the mid-1800s when they thought bloodletting was the answer. They believed, and basically if you listen to the theory of bloodletting, which had existed for thousands of years, Socrates, others believed in bloodletting or documented that, it made sense. It made sense. I mean, I'm blowing snot on my nose. I need to reduce the pressure. Therefore, let's let blood out. Unfortunately, it killed George Washington and hundreds of others, maybe thousands of others. Bloodletting was a really bad idea, but that's what the medical profession bases on.
Are you going to continue this metaphor and tell me how marketers are bloodletters?
We have a lot that we believe to be true that just isn't so, because generally many marketers...
Is it killing us?
Yeah, it's killing us. Yes, it's killing us. Yes. Well, I mean, you just said you're having a discussion with a bunch of people with the role of CMO dead. So I'm assuming you believe at some level that's a thesis. So yeah, I guess it suggests it is killing us, right? I mean,
obviously dead gets clickbait. If I say the role of the CMO is changing, people will just like roll their eyes and say everything's changing. But if a CMO is dying, people want to hear about that.
Yeah. Agreed. Understood. That's the world that we live in, and you're being a marketer at some level in that dynamic. Exactly.
That's what I tell people. People have said, well, "What do you do?" I said, "Essentially, I'm a marketer." I mean, even if you do a podcast, and you have to be a marketer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that almost every role now has some element of marketing.
I mean, everybody's always selling something, right? You're always pushing forward your ideas within a company. If that's what is that what you're saying? That's what you're kind of referring to.
I think it's very hard to even run a company now without having some, essential understanding of how marketing works.
Yeah.
If you're a CEO and you don't understand basic SEO and you don't understand basic marketing, I think you're not going to succeed in this environment because so much is online. As much as we have word of mouth and stuff like that, it's word of mouth online. You have to be able to track it.
We need to persuade and move people forward. Exactly. I mean, that's the sort of nature of what everybody's trying to.
So beyond metrics and CPIs, what do you believe is the true measure of success?
Well, I do think, here, I'll answer the question this way. It kind of gets back to sort of the MMA. Okay. So there was a board meeting about a year and a half ago, and the board kind of stopped me in the sort of middle of the board meeting. They said, Greg, what we really need you to figure out? We need you to figure out how to communicate marketing's value to the CFO. I was frankly a little surprised. They control
the purse strings.
Well, they do, but in essence they were saying is that we, after all these decades of the efforts we have, and with some of the largest budgets in a company, don't know how to explain to the rest of the management how we do what we do to produce growth, and how we sort of align the rest of the company around those metrics. I found that very interesting. Now we are on that; we're about a year and a half into it, and we will release some part of that at Possible, and then especially at CMO Summit here in July. Because we told the board it would take us 2 years to kind of figure that out. And we're on to it. By the way, the answer, I don't need to leave a giant cliffhanger for your listeners, but the answer is around lifetime value. It's helping to understand and express the company in terms of lifetime value of the customer. But we as marketers don't always talk that way.
Is customer loyalty still a factor in today's environment? I don't hear about it like I used to anymore.
Yeah.
Almost feel like everyone wants to send someone to their shopping cart and get a checkout. And where's the customer loyalty? I mean, I still get, for example, from Toyota, they send me something every month. They love that I'm a constant customer, but that seems to be fairly unique in the industry.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a tremendous amount of loyalty. I think that there was a lot of switching amongst favorite brands that we have. Yes.
Right.
I mean, there's some.
Is this just Gen Z? Is there just more finicky? Or they're just more knowledgeable, you think?
I don't know. I don't know that I have an answer to that one. I don't know that I know exactly where the lack of potential loyalty has come from, and I don't even know that it ever really existed. I mean, then you kind of positioned that question, which I thought rightfully so, which is, hey, I don't hear as much about loyalty. It was a big practice before. I worked within Y&R's Wonderman. It was Wonderman Cato Johnson at the time, the biggest direct marketing agency in the world. And it was always amusing to me because as I looked at the people within Wonderman, largest direct marketing, and say Ogilvy Direct, also another big direct marketing firm, they all had the people in charge of loyalty were all PhDs, which suggested to me it was more theory than practice.
Well, the idea
it was good for new business.
Once you got a customer in, you could keep them for life. The person would be a Ford buyer, and they'd always be a Ford buyer. They'd always buy Bounty, and I don't think that exists anymore. I think part of it's just research. You can go on the internet and Google anything you want or buy anything you want.
Yeah, I mean,
why
it
stick
depends.
to the same product?
Yeah, it depends on what category we're in or so what need I'm trying to solve at the moment. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't know that there's as much product differentiation between, products as there used to be. I used to think, Procter & Gamble built their business, I think, as I remember, and I worked on their business 30 plus years ago. But, they were really focused on producing a better product, and they were a measurable better product. Now, you maybe weren't always willing to pay the premium for the better product. I get that. That's a different dynamic. But I also think, too, that there's just a lot of different needs that people are trying to satisfy. So could one product handle all needs? Not likely. Here, I'll give you an interesting thing. We have a growth framework that we developed a couple of years ago that we're still in the process of doing experiments improving on. It's called Movable Middles Growth Framework. And part of it requires you to identify what is the percentage of people that would even be open to considering your brand. Okay. What is the percentage of people that actually buy the brand? Okay. The largest percentage, and we look at like a Tide as being a mass brand, right? Its movable middles is measured by us, 42%. What I consider to be one of the largest, most well-adapted, believed in, accepted brands in America, Tide, it's only 42%. So to your point, very small percentages of people who are buying products. I just don't know, universal loyalty suggests a universality to it. I just don't know that that's the case for anybody. So then the question is, how do we operate? What do we choose to do? Do we fight against loyalty, or do we fight against what do we do just to grab as much share as we can when we can and get as many sales as we can? That's the idea.
Right. We have a few minutes left. I want to address a couple of issues about your own personal life. How do you think your personal journey has influenced your professional ethos?
That's very interesting.
What are your core professional values?
Yeah. Listen, I like the idea of trying to do good work. I like the idea of trying to give back to an industry. It's why, listen, when I was asked to run the IB back in 2001, I told the board I didn't want to do that because I said, and my exact words were, running a trade association would be the dumbest effing thing I could do. That's were my exact words. I still remember that.
You've done it more than once.
And I've done it more than once. I've now turned around 2 of these things, right? I like the sense of mission and purpose that comes with them to solve real problems. Listen, I wrote the currency for our industry. The digital impression currency came from work I did in running the IB. I worked with a guy named Todd Teresi, now over at Apple. He was at Yahoo at the time, and George Ivey at the MRC, and a bunch of other people and members of it. And we developed the digital impression currency, what we now call viewability. We didn't have viewability at the time. That wasn't even a concept we thought of, but they added viewability later. But that came from the work I got to do. Founding of multi-touch attribution happened because of the work that Rex Briggs and I did to try to create a new measurement system to incorporate internet in the mix, because marketing mix modeling didn't do that. Here I'm rethinking org. I think the organizational work the MMA has done is the most important work I will do in my entire career. I think it's revolutionary.
Can you argue that your work is actually improving people's lives through income?
Well,
is that the argument you're partially making?
The purpose of income sounds like an individual or family level, but so let me just kind of
every business that you work with, every board member has a business and they have employees, and as this industry grows, those people they thrive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then 100% yes. The point of a trade association, I'll give it 2 layers. One is to look into the future and then marshal an industry in that direction for positive good to the industry. That is the underlying thesis of every trade association out there. We have different bites of that apple how we do that.
Right.
It is about making a group of people rich. That is
how do you
the
differentiate
purpose of
yourself?
Well, the IAB has traditionally, when I set it up and wrote the bylaws for it, we worked traditionally for publishers and ad tech companies. MMA has a different cut of that, which is that we work for marketers and CMOs, but we have enlisted the support of the entire industry to help solve some of these bigger problems. That's how we go at this. So there's different approaches to it, but But we're very different. I don't consider the IB competitive if that's part of where that question goes. We don't look at it that way.
Before we go, I'll ask everyone this.
Sure.
If you could send yourself a text message when you start in this industry, what would you tell yourself? And most importantly, what do you listen to yourself?
Yeah, wear life like a loose garment.
I'm sorry?
Wear life.
I heard wear white garments.
Wear life like a loose garment.
Oh, wear life like a loose garment.
Uh-huh.
What's that mean?
It basically means, listen, I take my work very seriously and I love doing it. But at the end of the day, it's only a small part of who I am. It's an important part. I like doing it. I like the challenge of solving the big problems. I like working with the people I get to work with. I love the team that we build here at the MMA. All that's good. And I do think that, we're either both creating legacy or seismic change for an industry way into the future. Okay? So
would you listen to yourself?
Would I listen to myself? Well, I wish I'd had advisors and mentors back in my early days in what I know now. So totally, and I think I did a reasonable job of that, not as well as I would. But my point in part is that let's kind of calm down here, everybody. Focus. Let's define the problem, define the challenge. Let's work together. Put arms together and go work together, solve it. But then that's why I probably run trade associations, because that is the nature of them. How are we working collectively to make the world better, if not just for our members, but for at large too. And let's not forget too, we've been pretty abusive to consumers in all this also. I mean, it's really kind of, I'm not even talking about the privacy stuff. Let's set that all aside. I mean, the fact that we serve ads that aren't targeted, that don't know anything about the consumer, that we serve the same ad within a pod of TV again and again and again, it's just annoying. I mean, it's really annoying. We've spent too much time teaching consumers to ignore advertising. I'd like to see us flip that around.
And we're making it worse. We really are making it worse. I think digital advertising, the constant barrage of ads has made it worse.
Well, the only thing I would say, so why do you say, answer why do you say we've made it worse? I'm not sure. I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way. I'm just defining for me what's made it worse.
Trying to get reach, and I always hear about reach. The reach is like this magical thing. We need reach instead of targeting. And trying to get reach is there's so many people putting ads out there. So you will constantly have an ad everywhere you go. So even if you're using multiple devices, if I'm on my phone and I'm watching my TV, I'm going to get all these ads. I'm going to get all these ads here. And then if I have my tablet, I'm going to get all these ads. And they're not even working together.
This is a good way to
me by then.
I'm about to bring our whole conversation back around. Okay, you ready? Right. Reach is the dumbest strategy ever. Now, you've expressed it from the standpoint of its offensiveness to consumers, which I think for marketers it's dumb.
It has destroyed everything. It's how media buyers. It's the lazy media buyer. They can go,
yes.
Oh, we reached 10 million people for effective CPM.
Agreed. So where the answer lies around that is what we tried to develop. So basically, the movable mills growth framework was created because we realized at a very fundamental mathematical basis that reach-based planning was wrong. Now, by the way, the industry has started to move. We measure that every year, and they have started to move away from reach. So that's good, but not 100%. I'm a little concerned that they call it something else, but they're still doing reach. But you're right. We're serving ads to people and consumers that don't really care, that couldn't really give a shit about it. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. We need to knock that off.
Greg?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on early.
No. It's good work. I mean, listen, the message has got to get out there.
And that's all, folks. Thank you, Greg Stewart, for sitting down with us. And special thanks to Troutman Ammon, LLP. Deserve to win when it matters most. Next week, we will have Kenneth Rona, the chief scientist of Simul Media, and Jared Siegel, the CEO and founder of Attitude. Reminder that sponsors keep independent and witty journalism alive. We can't run this on rainbows and good thoughts.